Welcome to DT Madness, Chronicles from the Third Life, episode 123, March 30th, 2025. So glad you could make it. In the fifth grade spelling bee, I misspelled frugal. I went with frugile. I went Frugile. And then in the sixth grade spelling bee, I misspelled mallet. And on the doc here, I have it as Mallet, but I really am never sure about that one, even to this day. And I think I went OT at the time, but pretty good speller overall. And obviously, still holding on to things, holding on to my failures from fifth and sixth grade spelling bee. But piranhas, man, can you spell piranhas? The N and the H in the different places is it's a little bit tricky, but seriously, we've got this kind of running question right now with the 16-year-old boy crew at school, my AP GoPo. Like what, and on the tennis team, if you could fight an animal and you get $1,000 for each pound, like what animal are you going to fight? You got to, no weapons. You got to fight it in its own habitat. So, if you're going to fight a blue whale, then you got to be, you got to be up under the ocean. I mean, like, so you got to consider these types of things. So how big are you going to go? Like, and I've kind of settled on corgis because corgis are ridiculous looking dogs. And I'll take 40 grand, Uh, but are you going to go bigger? You're going to try to fight a zebra, something like that. So what's your call on that? But Isaac mentioned, would you fight a piranha? And like, man, my my nervous system activated because I'm terrified of piranhas. And it's one of those things like, what movie did I watch? There was obviously a movie about piranhas that I watched that I'm sure my dad watched, and I was in the room. I think I probably checked out some books from the library after that to figure it out. And then, because you don't just fight one piranha, I mean, like you're fighting all of them, and I can see them right now in my mind's eye. I can see all those fish with their teeth, and they're coming for me, and I don't like that. Quicksand was always a thing like that, like I never have stepped in quicksand, but I watched this movie called The Beastmaster over and over. Love The Beastmaster. Kind of a creepy movie. And I never did get into quicksand though. And I've never seen a piranha, but I'm still pretty scared of it. I'd hoped to go down to Savannah. I don't know about hoped, but there was a hope for sure. Like I really wanted to maybe go down to Savannah last night to see Trey um, playing there. I'm going Wednesday night down to the Peace Center to see Trey solo acoustic, and it's kind of like VH1 Storytellers. He's telling all these stories, and last night he told stories about the early days when Fish would tour with Widespread Panic, and Trey talked about Mikey, and some of you probably don't know what I'm talking about right there, but if you know me or want to know me, then you got to find out. But anyway, I talked a little bit about Furman Ford. Oh, what I was going to say about Savannah and piranhas and quicksand is that bridge, but I think it comes out of Jacksonville, but I just could never be sure because I don't want to have to cross that stupid bridge. I dreamed about that bridge for years. Finally made it over it in the dream and hadn't dreamed about it since, but weird things, man. Speaking of weird things, I mentioned Furman Forward and Sydney going down last week. I think maybe I just typed about it on Facebook, but either way, she went down to to Furman for kind of her original. It wasn't orientation. It was just the day for the admitted and committed students, and she had a ball. It was great. She met people that were like her, and she's been excited, increasingly excited, talking with people on on Instagram and things like this, Snap and so forth, as the kids do. But one of the questions that they opened with was, not just what do you think your major is going to be, or what are you interested in studying. When they were in these small groups with these future students, the leaders asked, "What color is math?" And it does really seem, because I've pushed this question out to a lot of my students, that many people will say that math is red, but Sydney and her friend Lily, and she is her friend now because Lily agreed that math was blue, agreed with Sydney that math is blue. Now, Sid has her reasons for why all of these things are. She says history is yellow because of Trivia Crack, if you remember that game. And so she's got these associations with all of them. But when I would pose this question this week, what color is math? It generated such a buzz, man. Like everybody, or almost everybody, really did chime in and talk about what color they view math and English and so forth. So, wonder what you think about that. I I have to be real with you. Like, my name is Daniel, and I'm an ice cream addict. And I looked it up, and that's a real thing. Um, I'm trying. I really am. This yesterday was day one, back on the program. The only bad thing was a little bit of cheese dip last night from the Elloc, and but no ice cream yesterday. Just the fake yogurt pops or whatever. I'm not gonna end up with frosted tips. By the way, not everybody made 100 on that quiz, and so, but I'm here for the next 30 days. Got to get that summer dad bod going. Um, I mean, I'm not trying too hard. Um, I'll I like I like ice cream, and I've got these crack dealers in my house, man. When it comes to the sugar, because when the boys come over, or when Sydney's friends come over, they're all the time making brownies, or they're all making cookies. And I mean, if you're gonna have cookies, chocolate chip cookies, then you know what it goes really great with is vanilla ice cream. And Scoopty has really good vanilla ice cream, and they judge me. People judge me because they've got all their flavors, and that's fine. And you can have your caramel graham, swish or whatever it is that they've got, the different types of flavors. I just want vanilla. That's all I want. It's so good. But and there's no doubt I'm not really sure where RFK Jr. is going with all the "Make America Healthy Again" type stuff, but there's no doubt there's some addictive properties in this processed food that we got going on. So I got to dig deep, man. I got to dig deep. Speaking of food, I guess, man, there was a lot of years where we would go over to my mom and dad's house, and my dad would cook, and it was because he went to the doc, and the doc said you got to cut your salt out, and um, so he just began to cook on his own, and he would always make way too much, and he would experiment quite often, and he would arrange things to different people's diets and tastes because that's how he was. And we'd sit around the wooden table that he had made, and me and Sarah and the kids, my mom and dad, and we would sit there. And when the kids were little, man, I mean, it was several years where that was a thing. And I mean, almost every night of the week. On Fridays, I think we'd go to Elloc, but otherwise, pretty much every night of the week, we'd go over and see what Pop had in store. And sometimes it'd be frog legs, man. It would. Sometimes it'd be something that he just happened to see at Ingles and was like, I think I'm gonna try it out. But he had a name for Sam, and he would call him the Preparer, because we're fast eaters. Like Sydney and I, in particular, these days we will go to Panera, and it isn't. is it? It isn't a race, is it? But it kind of becomes one, and we just we just eat fast. And I learned that that behavior was modeled for me by my dad because he ate fast, and so that was typically the case. I had learned that Sydney, back when we used to go to the Bulldog Quick Snack, would watch Pop eat, and she would take a bite every time he would take a bite. And so, modeling is a real thing. But Sam never fell into that, and Pop would call him the preparer because he would be over there putting his mustard on and arranging his plate and doing all the kinds of things, and never would get to eating, and we'd be pretty much done, and he's still arranging everything. So Pop would call him the preparer. And I thought about that because this week, as I was doing some of my tasks, I realized how much preparing, how much I like it. Like I love getting to school at 6 in the morning, and there's quite a routine. Like I'll take my lunch bag down to the refrigerator and then type out whatever lesson plans I need and walk to the copier and arrange the little theater where I go to teach my government class, and just get everything set. Type up the tennis lineup if it's a match day. There's an official form that I've got to fill out to exchange with the coaches, and email out what time the players leave and whatever, like all those types of things. And that translates into tennis in the afternoon, especially on match day. On match day, I like to get out there at an hour or so before and unlock the building and roll the balls out and like put the scorecards on the nets. And I've got my whole program, unlock the bathrooms, um, sweep the courts where I need to. And that's, I really love the preparation part. You know, there are these little metal tabs that stick up in between the seams of the courts. They're not supposed to stick up, but our courts are just getting old. And so I needed a hammer, but I couldn't find one in the tennis building. And so I was wandering around the school and I found this. I don't know what it is. It's a metal thing. It's one of the pictures that's on my last Instagram post. It's sitting on the baseline there. I think I really don't know what it is. I thought it was a door lock of some sort, but I can't be sure. But I took it out there because one of the terms that we talk about in AP Psych is functional fixedness. And so, like, I have this really heavy metal thing, but I don't have a hammer. And if I have functional fixedness, then I wouldn't know, or I wouldn't, you know, calculate maybe that I could use this heavy metal thing to bang down these metal tabs. But I know about that term. And so I took that metal thing right out there and fixed it up. So no functional fixedness for me. And that's the time of year that I'm in, is where I begin to think of AP Psych terms for pretty much everything. I mean, I used to love being the guy to get up early and go to BRCC, to Broad River Church, to set up chairs and unlock doors and arrange things, to make sure everything was there. I like the execution part as well. I do. I like the execution part. But there's something about having it all set and having it all prepped that feels good to me. Um, come to think of it, I guess the planning of trips and the arranging of details is all part of that package. I mean, I'm already mentally planning for pushing the water when it rains on our tennis courts. There's so many dips in our courts, so many dips and swells in our courts that it really puddles up. And so I don't have a squeegee like you would think of, like you would rake the water off your windshield. But these are rollers, and so they just kind of push the water around in it. And the idea is to flatten the water out, and then the sun and the air does its job because it's on whatever it is. I don't think it's concrete, but whatever material that is. And I'm already mentally preparing because it's going to rain some later today, maybe, and definitely Monday. And depending on how late, I will either be over at the courts Monday night late or really early Tuesday morning, pushing pushing that water around. Because we got a huge match. We got a big match on Tuesday, and we're at the end of the season. Conference tournament is a week from Tuesday, so we got to get these matches in. But the mental preparation is also something I enjoy, and the internal dialogue. I saw a thing on Instagram that says that some people have an internal dialogue and they're able to think their thoughts or verbalize their thoughts internally, and some people don't. Some people have to they have abstract thoughts, but they can't visualize them or verbalize them, and and so they just maybe have to talk it out, and that's the latter is hard for me to understand because I'm not like that. Like, I mean, my internal dialogue will be external dialogue. If I'm out on the courts at 6 a.m. and it's just me out there in the dark pushing water around, I'll have conversations with the different parts of me. I mean, that's the thing. I don't just have a couple of voices. Like, uh, yeah. Um, and I've thought about like how to describe it, and in describing it, I thought about how I like to listen to Fish in particular, but other music such as jazz like that, like Grateful Dead or whatever. But Fish, I mean, it's four parts. You know, there's a lead guitar, a bass, a keyboard, and drums, and yet they're all separate and they're all together. And sometimes one takes off in a different place, and sometimes it's dissonant, and sometimes it's soaring, and sometimes it's ambient. And my internal dialogue is like that. My internal thinking is like that. I have more than one area of thought going on at once, and sometimes that it all fuses, but then it takes off again, and I don't, and I'm curious. My internal dialogue is curious with itself as to whether or not, like, listening to Fish catalyzes that. Like, does it make it happen that way, or is it a mirror? Is it one of the reasons why I love the music so much, because it mirrors and almost provides an avenue for those myriad thoughts. I don't know. Interesting, isn't it? I'm sure you find it interesting. Um, but I love the preparation. I did have a few lapses, we'll say, in preparation this week. Um, it's AP time, and I tell these kids, like, I'm like this too. I have always been able to wait until the last minute and do really good quality work, or at least quality enough to get A's and move on and make good grades on tests and all that kind of stuff. So I know that you are like that too. And I know you want to wait until the last minute, but we're there. We're there in terms of AP preparation, because we got 10 days of school, and then it's spring break. We come back, we have 10 days, and then it's AP exams. Like, it's game time. And so we've really been pressing and working on writing free response questions. And one of the ones that we have in AP government is a Supreme Court comparison case. And they give us 14. It's the quiz. I tried to get them to all pass, to memorize the 14. And most of them did, I will say. Most of them did. There's 45 of them. And so we're working on this thing, and there's the court case that we know, the 14 that they give us, and then you got to compare it to one just random. And the one that was random on this one, that was prepared by my mentor, my guru, my GoPo guru, Mr. Jonathan Milner, was about the court case that happened a couple of years ago, where a girl didn't make the cheerleading team, or she didn't make varsity, and then on Snapchat she says, you know, F the school and F cheerleading and F everyone and the coach, and she put that on her Snap story, and she was suspended for it. And so the question that came before the Supreme Court was, does this person have free speech? And that's compared to Tinker versus Des Moines, where the kids wore black armbands in protest of the Vietnam War, and they were also suspended. But the court said that they did have freedom of speech to do that, as well as this girl who said all those things. If she came into the school and said that, if I'm the coach and she said that to my face, then that wouldn't be free speech. But that isn't what happened. So the question is, in your digital life, where's that line, especially for students? Except for when I printed it out and handed it to them, I didn't think about it for a second, because I never would have thought that the word F would actually be spelled out over and over and over and over. So thankfully, I didn't put them on the Canvas platform, our learning system, whatever it is, like Google Classroom, but we call ours Canvas. I had printed it out, and so as I'm going around, I'm looking, and somebody asked me about it, how to answer this one, and I saw it. Like I'm like, okay, I'm going to take these back up now. Um, so that was good. The other, um, or one of the other, there's four of them. One of the other free response questions is called quantitative analysis, and what that is just a chart or a graph, some sort, where the kids have to identify the data, but then interpret it as well. And in my learning system, in the Canvas system, if you try to make an assignment that's called quantitative analysis, quantitative analysis review or something like that, then it's too long. So I was going to shorten it. And I was like, well, I'll just shorten it to quantitative now. Yeah. Thankfully, I didn't submit that. And I'll let you work what that really is out in your own mind. I found this book when I was looking through the truck that used to be my dad's truck, and that we're driving now because Isaac got his license, and so we're shuttling all the cars around. And I found this book that's like I don't remember the name of it, and I keep it in my console for when I go to the river. But it's prayers and poems and sermons, Buddhist prayers, poems, and sermons. And so I picked it up because I'm kind of in between books. Although I did get one called Kafka on the Shore by Murakami, and I'm a couple of chapters in. I'm excited about where that one's going to go. But what's awesome is that there are underlines in the book and like little notes written on the edges of the page in my dad's handwriting, and it just makes me so glad. I love this stuff. Like I love reading the different poems and trying to just sit and contemplate what they mean, and not allowing my Western mind to try to come to a solution or a conclusion. but but what's really amazing is seeing those underlines and the way that I don't know, the way that fills me. Um, I got cheese dip on my shirt. Like I really am getting a little bit too much of a dad bod belly here. And so yesterday was day one, and but I got some queso, some cheese dip on my shirt the other day, and not really out of habit. I mean, I know that I knew what I was doing, but I just kind of pulled my shirt up and licked the cheese dip off instead of wiping it off. And because my dad with his bib overalls on would do that, if we were at the restaurant, and like I laugh cried. You know what I'm saying? Like it made me tear up, but I don't know, that was something. Okay. Well, the voting for teacher of the year was last week, as you know. Was it 2 weeks ago now? Whenever it was. And I guess it ended on Tuesday. But they didn't say anything about it. So the results haven't even been. It ended at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. Why does it close at 3 o'clock on Tuesday if you aren't going to announce the results? Haven't we learned anything about elections in the last couple of years? So there's no updates, and I've tried to fish around. I've asked a couple of people, do they know when it's going to come out? And I've talked to them and told them like my little story, my little spiel of what all I'm up to this year. Just trying to find out. I just want to know, man. Like I had a dream about it last night. I had a dream that I got all these stickers and I got all these invitations to the thing, but it wasn't clear if they were just trying to make me feel better or if they were like letting me know. Ah, so stupid. But man, like, and I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be upset if it isn't me. I know that the numbers wise, it's unlikely somebody's gonna win with like 20% of the vote because there's 15 people and people just vote and whatever. And that's stupid. The process is stupid. Even if I win, the process is stupid. And but 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 I've thought about it, and like I did have this moment last week. I wore my good shirt though. I wore my good shirt on the day, like my good outfit with my pink shirt, my jeans, and my special shoes. Like, I mean, I was looking nice on a Wednesday. And I thought that would be the day, but it wasn't the day. And I told my principal, I told my guys, like, I wore my good shirt and everything. He got a little chuckle out of it. And but I mean, I do what I do for the kids, man. I know that that's true. And also I realize, like, yeah, I do want to be teacher of the year, and I want to do what it takes to fit that criteria, even though there isn't a criteria. Okay, there's no criteria, but I want to be that. Like, I do show up early and prepare, and I do have four different classes to prepare for. Three of them AP classes, and I do have 45 students in one of them that I have managed very well, and I do have a very difficult class with 26 personalities that shouldn't be together, but I do handle that too. And I am the announcer for football Thursdays and Friday nights. I coach tennis in the fall and the spring. I'm connecting our kids to local government and connecting Crest and Gardner Webb SGAs together. And as Isaac, like Isaac likes to say, he's a delight. But I've gone out of my way as best I can to be collegial, to help teachers who are really struggling. And anyway, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that next year as well. I'm going to try to do it better next year than I did this year. And you know what? I want to be coach of the year in tennis. I don't know much about how to teach them how to hit a forehand, and I'm trying to learn how to teach them how to play doubles a little bit better. But I can help them get through tough parts of a match. I can try to give them words of encouragement, and I can try to build cohesion on the team and mental toughness in the individuals. And I do have that desire to be coach of the year, and I want to be mayor of the year. I do respond quickly to people who inquire about things and do my best to help them solve their problem. And most of the time, that is doable. And I do want to make sure that, like, partisan politics don't get in the way and help the council members, like, communicate with each other, but also with the town manager and staff, like that. Whatever. Like, I'm just telling you that those are the things that drive me. I do want to be excellent. And I've gotten a few former students when they'll comment on Facebook or say things like on Instagram to me or something about teaching and how they remember my class and all that kind of stuff, even 10 years later. That's great, man. That fuels me. It does. And those are the types of things that are really important to me. And, I've got a few colleagues who will say encouraging things to me, but not many. I think it's just, and a lot of, I don't know. I'm sounding whiny. I don't mean to be sounding whiny. But I've poured myself out. I've poured myself out this year for the school more than any other year. And that really is saying something because I do okay. All that to say, and that's my case, and that's the stuff that I need to get out. And I want people to recognize it. I want people to affirm it. I want to be seen, as they say. But more than that, more than that, I really do want to move beyond needing external reward or recognition. I really do want to move beyond that. I want to move to the place where I'm confident in what I'm doing is the best that I can do and it's pretty good and and that's enough. Yeah. So anybody got any tips for how to do that? You can let me know. I mean, I do wonder where that intense desire comes from. Yeah. If I think back, like this type of of wanting to be congratulated, those types of things. It runs pretty deep, man. Runs pretty deep, and so I'm curious. I need to go down and before the rains come and sit with that part of me, check in down at the river and have my internal dialogue externally, maybe. But anyway, enough. Way too much about me and my teacher of the year desires. But about tennis, a couple of things like I do it's called a sign up genius, and it's one of the things I'm not good at. I'm not good at this part of like getting parents to sign up for snacks or really caring if that happens. Because we have water and you can bring your some crackers and stuff like that. I know that tennis is hard and things like this, but for the most part, it's the guys who aren't playing. We have 15 guys on the team, and only six are playing. And obviously, the six aren't eating snacks during the match. They may need some in between, and I know that they need some after. But I told them, back in my day, we had an orange slice, just one, and that was enough. But we didn't have like somebody, nobody signed up for the snacks that particular day, and so we got out there, and the players come out, and they're getting starting to get ready, and they realize like where are the snacks, and there weren't any, and like it was dejection is the word. The players were just dejected, man. In fact, some of them got in their cars and went and bought some. So my my colleague, one of my good friends that I teach with, we teach psych together, and um, the amygdala is the part of your brain that deals with fear and aggression. So we were talking about it, and her toddler got in trouble at preschool because he hit a kid, I guess, like just like hit him in his back a little bit because the kid had his toy and all this kind of stuff, and so we're laughing about that, and then she asked about it, and with hey son, did you hit someone today? And he hit his face, in shame and ran away and things like this. And I'm like, well, it's good that he feels he knows he shouldn't have done it and all that kind of stuff. So I had to tell her like about my own toddler episode, and we were playing tennis up at North Gaston this past week, and like they're notorious, man. They were like this last year too. They're just like they were. I don't just making. I don't. They weren't just drinking Red Bull before the match. Like there's this part of the match where we all line up, the top six, and we call each other's names out and we clap. And it's a gentlemanly sport. It just is that way. And that's all fine. But they're shotgunning Red Bulls. Shotgunning Red Bulls and like letting out these rebel yells before the tennis match. So that kind of set the tone already. Last year the kid that Isaac played barked during the thing. And so there's all this stuff going on. I'm not making excuses. But it wasn't even the guy that Isaac played. It was the number two seed, and he was just cussing them during the match and like slamming balls around. His dad would come up to him and talk to him at the net, which isn't allowed at the fence. And so there's all this going on. Parents are bringing these issues up, and so it got to be towards the end of the singles matches, and the ones and the twos they play beside each other. And Isaac made a call that a ball was out, and the number two looked over and was like, "No way, man, that wasn't even out." And I may have had an outburst. I may have said back there from like, "Hey, why don't you just focus on your own match?" Well, it was one of those things where it kind of echoed through the hollers, and the player like turned around. He's like, "Who said that? Won't you say it again?" These types of things. And he had just lost, so I understand he was mad too, and it was his senior night. But also, focus on your own match. Um, but I had my own amygdala episode. My aggression popped out, and I tried to make it. I smoothed it over. I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I told my players like, because they're how the kids are. Ooh, these kinds of things, and plus I'm not really much of a fighter type, aggressive type person. Um, I'm gonna probably do flight instead of fight, and I didn't want to get beat up by a high school kid, and not his dad either. So I was like, "Oh man, I was just talking to the three doubles. They were messing around. I'm like, hey, y'all focus on your match." And I told the kid that to try to de-escalate the situation, and I did feel the shame. I did. I did feel that what I had done was not right. And I try to teach my players better. So we did have a comeback against them in doubles. The ones and twos played together, and our guys were up 5-2. They played at 8. Our guys were up 5-2, and then they lost 5 straight games and were down 5-7. And I went and I told them, I was like, "Hey, this is right where you want to be. Now you can learn from what this situation feels like." And those kids, man, those 16-year-olds, they rallied and they won 4 straight games to win 9-7, including like fadeaway slam that Isaac had to hit the dude right in his chest. That made me feel kind of okay. That's terrible. I know that's terrible. Big match on Tuesday. Big match. It'll determine second place, which we knew going in that South Point was the team. They're defending state champs, and so big match on Tuesday. That's why I got to get the courts ready. I hope we can start early because I got to go and be mayor right after. Got to be there by 6:30, so I hope we can win before that, so I don't have to miss the end of the match. Um, DT Handyman update. It's been a while. The little sprayer on the sink, like the handle broke. It just it's plastic, so well, all I need is the head part. I fixed the whole thing before I could put the hose in, but that's a process getting underneath a kitchen sink. But now all I need is the head, so I got it, get it, open it up, unscrew the one, screw the other one on the top, spray it. Nope, shoots out. I'm like, well, this one doesn't fit. And Isaac's over on the couch, and he's like, "What? Just let me look at it." I'm like, "Whatever, man. You can come look at it if you want to. I'm gonna put it back in the package because it doesn't fit." And so he comes over. He's like, "Okay." And he looks at it a little bit, contemplates for a second, takes this one little piece off the old one, the little rubber gasket. Things I don't even think about, man. I do not have that knowledge. And within 2 minutes, he's like, "Yeah, okay." Puts it in, screws it on, sprays it, works beautifully. Like, basically, mic drops and walks back over to the couch. I'm like, "Shut up, you kid." So the DT handyman these days is, I call my 16-year-old. What's in a name? She says. And this is from the Bechet essay. And I'm not giving it away, from A. Kendra Green. Though, what things wild and I don't remember the title. A. Kendra Green. And I'm going to be dealing with this. And I told you like an episode or two ago that reading these sparks things in my mind. It never really wraps it up. But I'm not going to talk about the essays in particular because I want you to read them. And I do think they would be fun to talk about in a group setting. But what's in a name? And how do we use labels? See, I'm the person that doesn't want to be labeled. Like, I don't know. Some of you are probably hearing, I like to be prepared and I need all this affirmation and I really want to be teacher of the year. And some of you are like, well, you're definitely an Enneagram 7. I don't know. But I'm the Enneagram number that doesn't want to be a number. I don't like labels. I don't like putting an R beside my name or a D beside my name and then saying that that encapsulates all of who I am. I understand the need for naming. I understand the need for it. Um, but it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing to give someone a name, to give something a label. And it can be really helpful and it can be really positive, but it is powerful nonetheless. And the impact that that has on our kids when we become trite with our naming and our labels, and it gets really, I mean, memes were a thing back in the 1970s. That became a term in psychology. But now with the advent of AI and social media and instantaneous um, sharing, like the way that we name and label things and the impact that it has on our kids, it's profound. The impact it has on all of us, but especially on our kids. Our words and the stories we tell are so important and powerful. It's just worth the greatest care. And the performance culture that we live in, that I mentioned some last week, where Everyone is kind of always playing their role and always on stage because of these handheld devices we have that we never get to turn off. When I would go home from school, I wasn't a part of the social situation anymore unless I called someone up on my Swatch phone. But now kids and adults are all tapped into this performance culture all the time, and so it makes these labels and stories that we tell even more crucial. It's why education and deliberation and contemplation are so valuable. Patience, the slow and thorough deliberation, education. There's a guy named Gareth Southgate, Sir Gareth Southgate, and I'm not a footballer. I'm not a European footballer. I don't have a team. I did like Ted Lasso, but I don't sit and watch, soccer on TV. I don't follow the teams and things like this. It's not for me. Gareth Southgate played for England. He was the manager for England. He missed maybe a really crucial penalty kick in a major match one time, and so he's had to live that down and learn from that. But he gave this speech called the Dimbleby Lecture a week or so ago, and in it he talked about some of the challenges that our kids, especially our young boys, are facing, and that the fact that they don't have the structure of role models that maybe that they're not going to boys clubs. They don't look to coaches and teachers and other mentors the same way. And there's a rash of fatherlessness in England, he says, but of course that applies to the US as well. And he says instead where these young men find their identity, where they find their mentorship is online through gambling, through gaming, and these toxic influencers who try to teach them that power and wealth and like crass behavior and not showing any emotions, and that convincing them that the whole world is against them. But those are the people that are filling the void. And I just thought that was really a really poignant message. And I hope I can find the whole transcript. I think it was a 30-minute or so lecture. I've only been able to find that one little clip. But we are in a cultural war. We are in a cultural war, and I don't I don't think it spans. It can't just be divided by political party. I see it every day in the schools. Um, what are the models that are out there for our kids or lack thereof? Excuse me, there's an experiment in psychology done by Albert Bandura where you know kids are playing with toys and they have their toys taken away, and some of them get to watch adults beating up this Bobo doll, like this blow up doll, and the other kids don't. And then after they have their toys taken, the ones who saw the adults being violent and aggressive were also violent and aggressive, and the ones that weren't. Modeling is a huge deal. So who are our role models? You know, and it makes me think about the things that I learned from my dad. Like after you lose a game, up, that's just the way the old ball bounces. But at the same time, demanding excellence, underlining key passages in books that talk about finding yourself in by listening to a mountain stream. Who are our role models? Who are our kids' role models? And that is worth paying attention to. It's worth fighting for. Like what types of messages are we putting out there for the kids? From the churches, from the schools, from the wherever, man. Like I'm not there's no dividing line. It's a systemic problem. And I know it's just a TV show, and I know that they can arrange it the way that they want to through editing and production and all that kind of stuff. But Joe from Survivor 48, he's the guy that our boys ought to be looking up to. He's strong and muscular. He's masculine, but he's a caring man. He's a caring individual. I don't want to spoil it for you. You ought to watch episode, I think, 5 or 6. The last one. Yeah. I bought some purple hanging flowers because I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. I went to Hannah's to get me a large Americano so I could get the triple shot of espresso so I could stay up and watch Duke win last night, which I did. And she had the hanging baskets out, and that was the first time that I've seen them this season. And so I was like, those are pretty. How much? And they were $20. I'm like, all right, I'll take one. And I just get to pick which one, everyone's out there. And I don't know. I like the ones that had pink and purple. And there were two that had pink and purple. And there happened to be two ladies out on the deck, and I'm like, hey, can you assist me here? Which is definitely something my dad would have done. He would often go to Ingles, and then he would ask, what are we having for dinner tonight? Things like that. But I asked these two old ladies, not old, they weren't old. I asked these two ladies um, to help me out which one they liked between the two pink and purple ones. And then we kind of looked, and I was like, of course, I do like the all purple ones too. And they agreed. And then there were two all purple ones to pick. And so I was like, how about this one? And she said, yep, that one has the most flowers on it. It's really pretty. And so I was like, thank you very much. And I brought that sucker home. So now I got my purple hanging flowers. Last important question of the day. How many chuggas before you choo choo? I'm a 12 guy. I like to get the train going. Some people are just two. Two chuggas. And then a choo choo. What you got? Well, this, of course, is a Church of Six production. This one's brought to you by my guy, Matthew Frazier, who is in the market to hook up DT Madness with a special new microphone that's going to take us to new heights. It's my guy. And to Matt Orth, who has become my partner in discussing these essays and also all things Severance. I'll see you out there in Iowa. The bucket of life has been refreshed. The water is crisp and clear. Grace and peace to you, my friends. And as always, I hope this week you be live